When you think of America, you are most probably thinking about this.
The American dream.
American dream.
This is vile!
The American dream of owning a home.
And unleashing American energy, where we're now the largest in the world. We're taking our economy to incredible new heights.
Decisions are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't.
The American dream is that no matter what your background is, what country you're from, what income background you're from, that no matter what, you can be anything you want to be. And
YouTube star Mr. Beast, whose real name is Jimmy Donaldson, has more than 100 million subscribers.
This is the idealized version of America that has been shown in the media for decades. But have you ever wondered what lies behind the surface of the American dream? From the glamour of Hollywood to the fast-paced lifestyles of the big cities, life in the United States can often be seen as being one full of countless opportunities and success. But behind this appearance, there are many hidden truths that tell a different story, a story about the dark side of life in the US, from the alarming rate of poverty to the rampant inequality in access to education and healthcare. This video will take a deeper look into the issues that are affecting many Americans today. When most people think of America, the first things that come into their minds are millionaires, luxurious houses, big tech companies, funky cars, and so on. In short, when someone thinks of America, they think about money, and they are not totally wrong. The US is the country with the most millionaires from the entire world. Around 24 million millionaires. That's a huge number. And let's not forget about companies. Some of the biggest companies in the world, like Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, are in America. What I try to say is that from a global perspective, America is the land of all possibilities, which means if you live in America and work hard enough, eventually you will get rich and will have the life that you always dreamed of. Unfortunately, things don't work this way. As you see, many Americans have problems with money, but why? As I think you already know, living in the United States can be expensive. Despite being one of the wealthiest countries in the world, the cost of living in America is higher than in many other countries, and getting higher all the time. Several factors are driving this high cost of living, including inflation, low wages, the housing market, and taxes. First, let's take a close look at inflation. Over the past decade, the Federal Reserve has kept interest rates low to stimulate economic growth. This has led to an increase in the money supply, which in turn has driven up the prices of goods and services. As a result, it has become very expensive to buy basic necessities such as food, clothing, and housing. This year, inflation reached a 40-year high in June, and all people feel the increases in the cost of everyday purchases, with fuel and groceries on the top of the list. But for people to be able to keep up with inflation, they need an increase in wages, but that doesn't really happen. Wages have not kept pace with inflation, leaving many people with little income for their needs. This is especially true for middle and lower income earners who are struggling to make ends meet. The cost of living has risen faster than wages, leaving many people unable to afford basic necessities. Now the question is why salaries do not keep pace with inflation. To find out the answer, let's take a look back at 1971. This year, President Nixon implemented a series of economic measures called the Nixon Shock. One of these measures was to take the United States off the gold standard, which meant the dollar was no longer backed by gold, and that other countries could no longer use the dollar to buy gold. As a result, the value of the dollar dropped and it became weaker compared to other currencies, making imports more expensive and exports cheaper. And starting this year, the productivity pay gap started to grow. As you see in this graph, productivity for an hour of work has grown considerably, but the pay didn't. And if you wonder where all this money goes, it goes to the CEOs and shareholders' pockets. Of course, the end of the gold standard is not the only reason behind the gap between pay and productivity. However, it remains an essential one. And besides these, let's not forget the housing market. The American real estate market is in continuous growth and it doesn't seem to be slowing down very soon. Home prices have skyrocketed in recent years, making it increasingly difficult for many people to buy a home. This has led to a situation where many people are unable to move to more affordable areas, leaving them stuck in high-cost areas where the cost of living is especially high. The reason why houses are so expensive has to do with how much land they take up and how much it costs to build them. You need quite a lot of land when you want to build a house anywhere near the city center, even if you build it as high up as possible to avoid being affected by pollution from cars and factories. And because the offer does not meet the demand, right now in the US is a shortage of around 5 million homes. All these things together made 500,000 Americans become homeless, with the highest percentage being in California. Americans spend more out of pocket for their healthcare than people in most other wealthy nations. Some resort to purchasing medications from other countries where prices are far lower. The status quo may be acceptable to healthcare insurers, pharmaceutical companies, and some healthcare providers who are rewarded handsomely by it, but the current American healthcare system is not sustainable. In most countries, healthcare systems are constructed to keep the population as healthy as possible. This is what most people actually wanted to do. It makes perfect economic sense. Healthy citizens are more productive. In the US, the healthcare system is designed to extract as much money from the population as possible. This isn't hard to do. People will pay anything to get well. This makes economic sense to the companies that profit from the design, especially those who don't actually provide any healthcare at all, and those that sell medical insurance, for instance. And it's actually very efficient at this. It extracts twice as much money from the population as public healthcare systems and gives the population much less actual healthcare. But you may be wondering how the American system differs from others. So let's take a look at the American and European systems. The American and European healthcare systems differ in several ways. In the United States, healthcare is largely provided through private insurance companies, while in Europe, healthcare is largely provided through government-funded programs.
On page 8 of the bill, it says that we will no longer have private insurance as we know it. And that means that 149 million Americans will no longer be able to have their current insurance. That's in 4 years. I don't think that's a bold idea. I think it's a bad idea.
In the United States, healthcare costs are much higher than in Europe due to the higher cost of private insurance. Additionally, the American healthcare system is more fragmented than the European system, with different states having different regulations and standards. The American healthcare system is more focused on treating acute illnesses, while the European system is more focused on preventive care and public health. Basically, the American healthcare system is more expensive than the European system because of the higher cost of private insurance and the lack of universal coverage, and because the American system is more complex and fragmented than the European one. It's difficult for patients to find and understand their options. This makes patients spend more money as well as getting delays in receiving care. As a country at large, the US healthcare system is a basket case, but it gets worse depending on what state you live in. But not only the health system was turned into a profitable business, but also the education one. Today, roughly 70% of American students end up taking out loans to go to college. The average graduate leaves school with around $30,000 in debt. Some 45 million Americans have around $1.6 trillion in student loans debt and counting. The cons of easy loans are that they've broken the back of up to 45 million Americans. Only 56% of federal student loans are actively being repaid. 44% are either in default or deferral, convincing so many kids to go to college and throwing loans at them, creating a massive debt crisis. Because loans are available and allowed to the large public, a lot of state schools are now run like for-profit businesses. Of course, college is not a bad thing if you really want it and you can afford it. The bad thing is when you spend 4 years, and the only thing you're left with is a $30,000 debt, because you can't find a job you want, and for which you have been preparing all this time. Ask anyone about America and you will surely hear about it. The United States is not a safe country for many reasons, and one of them is the high rate of gun violence, which has been on the rise in recent years. According to the Gun Violence Archive, there were over 39,000 deaths caused by gun violence in 2020 alone. This is a staggering number and shows that the US is not of the top safest places to live. Additionally, the US has a high rate of police brutality, with police officers killing unarmed civilians. The poverty and inequality problems are the ones that contribute to more violence and crime. All of these factors contribute to an overall feeling of insecurity and make the US not the most welcoming place that you see in the movies. Of course, America is not the worst place to live on Earth. It has its good sides too, but the American dream that many people dream of is mostly an illusion. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Don't forget to give a like, and if you want to see more videos about money and power and other interesting things, press the subscribe button. Until next time, take care of yourself. Peace.